Okay, so I'm live right now. Hello, I am Chastity White Rose, formerly Chandler Klebs, and today I'm doing my second ever live stream using the StreamYard web service. It's a streaming platform that streams directly to social media channels. So I streamed directly to my Facebook account yesterday, and I got comments and even had two guests join me. I had Monique and I had Kath Lamb join me in that live stream. So I got to talk to two people speaking, but I also could read the comments that were being left and reply to them. So this today, instead of streaming to my Facebook page, I'm streaming to my YouTube channel. So here's the thing. I have a very specific goal in mind for today's video. And I'm not planning on inviting guests on here to talk for this one because I have a different thing in mind. Instead, I'm going to attempt to set up screen sharing so that I can read my very first book I published, Confessions of a Confused Virgin. So I'm going to attempt to set this up, and I don't know if I would like people to be able to watch this live. This is going to take a little bit of time to set up. Let's see here. Okay, wait, it has your entire screen, application window. Let's see. Why is my, I have this is very strange. This is very strange here because I actually have a text editor open. And so I could try to share the entire screen so that I'll be able to show this because I do want people to be able to see what's on my screen. So, okay, so because it doesn't let me specifically select the text editor itself. So I'm going to have to select the entire screen. So this is going to look a bit weird. I want to be able to share this though. Like, how do I, oh, I know. Okay, so if I'm going to view this on YouTube. We recommend closing YouTube while you're live. This saves bandwidth and is easier on your computer. Well, maybe I won't bother with it because I was just going to share the link to the YouTube stream so that more people could watch it live. But that's not too big of a deal. So right now, here's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to configure this. So I can configure different settings. So I have here's what it's like when it shows only my camera showing me. Here's what now when I do that, it doesn't do anything. When I do that, it does nothing. That does nothing. But this setting shows my screen here, it recorded in a smaller area. This one shows my screen there, but it also shows me on the side. I like that. I actually do like that view. Now this one, however, shows, okay, I see. So this one here is going to show me, that shows the entire screen. And because this is a live stream and because video quality tends to vary, I want to make the font size bigger. I'm going to attempt to do this. So, okay, first of all, I'm going to turn off the full screen size of a window. And I see the little preview. It shows my screen and it also shows the text editor. I have the Kate text editor. It's a text editor. It's like the Linux version of Notepad. There's many text editors. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. It's not necessarily so important that I cover the entire screen with this, although I may in the future. I hope this is a successful live stream. I really want to try this. I'm going to attempt to read my entire book in one stream because it can be read in about 30 minutes at a decent speed. But I'm going to be commenting on a lot of things because many things have changed since I wrote this book. So first of all, let's see. Can I increase the? Yes, I can increase the font size here. So let's see here. So here's what I'm going to do. Now I'm trying to. It's complicated because see, I'm trying to view in the preview how big it is. I could have tried to set this up before the broadcast, but this is part of the learning experience, seeing me try to set up the live stream just the right way. So I'm pressing Control and then plus to make it make the text bigger. So, okay, I'm just going to switch this to full screen because I hope it will work out. So I'm going to maximize this window. I saved the plain text version. Oh, one thing I do want to show you before I begin this though. Okay, yeah, this is very interesting. Wait, there's more than one. Oh yeah, okay, there's one. Yeah, see, I actually downloaded this text file from my account here. See, because I'm the author, every version that I've uploaded of all my books on Smashwords, I can download them all in any format. So I uploaded a Microsoft Word doc file, which was actually converted from an open or LibreOffice document file. But then I downloaded the plain text version conversion from here. So, and the only difference between these three versions is that there were mistakes, like there were formatting mistakes, but none of the words changed with the exception that I changed it to say, well, you'll see what I mean. I'm just going to get into this. Instead of explaining for an hour about what I'm doing, I'm just going to start. I'm going to, as soon as I switch to this window, it's going to cover the whole screen. So here we have a text file, and I'm going to make it very big. Okay, so here, this is the text file I downloaded. But what I'm going to do is first of all, let's eliminate some extra white space here just for the sake of this video. Okay, so remember this book was published in the summer of 2013. That's how long ago it was. I published it originally under my old name, my legal name, Chandler Klebs. It is called Confessions of a Confused Virgin. Where did sex come from and where is it going? By Chastity White Rose, formerly known as Chandler Klebs. And then notice that the formatting of this isn't entirely perfect because the page breaks from the original document are not in the plain text version. So I'm just going to fix some of the formatting as I go, as I record this live stream and read it aloud. That is basically the plan. So, and then I may, after doing that editing, I may even be able to publish the plain text version after I've manually corrected the whole thing to elsewhere, to some other website for those who want to easily read it. And I need to comment on some of these things. I'm going to scroll down because there are a lot of things that I really feel like I need to clarify. So this is going to be my confused virgin commentary or confused virgin comedy commentary cringe or something like that. So I'm just going to begin. Here's the preface. As a young single Christian virgin in my 20s, I started to think about girls, dating, sex, marriage, pregnancy, and babies. However, I tried to hide my thoughts and feelings for fear that people would call me a dirty, sinful pervert. I started to hate myself more and more for thinking about these things. They were not something that many Christians want to talk about. I prayed constantly, begging God to remove these sexual thoughts from me. And then when he never did, I became angry at God and wanted to kill myself. Even if I killed myself, I was afraid of going to either hell or afraid that I would go to heaven and be near the God I hated. Now I can see how messed up my thoughts were. I don't hate myself or God anymore, but it's been a long process. So this is why I needed to do a commentary, okay? Let me make sure things are still working right. Yeah. See, I have to comment on this because you see, let's switch temporarily here. You see, this needs to be commented on. This is not your ordinary type of thing, okay? So I was in church when I was young, and in churches, what did they always talk about? Whether you're in Sunday school or you're in church, wherever you go, they're always talking about sex to the young people constantly. And it makes sense to me that I was thinking about all these things because that's all they were talking about. All they were ever talking about to the teenagers and young adults was sex. And why did they do that? Probably because they just made the assumption that, well, that's what young people think about. And we want to make sure they don't have sex before marriage. Like, seriously, Christians are weird. Like, Christians are weird because they seem to be all freaked out that somebody might have sex before marriage, and that will be the unforgivable sin. And back at that time, I was a Christian. I believed in God. I had been raised in the church my whole life. And so I was in church hearing these messages, and I was like, huh? And it's very, very weird because back then I just thought, oh yeah, God made men and women to have and made the male and female so that they would have sex and reproduce. But then God also doesn't want them to have sex till they're married. So I got really confused. So this book was my response, you could say, back when I was a Christian, and responding to the no sex before marriage teachings in church. So this book was sort of my reaction and how it affected me. And the religious abuse done to me is quite evident from reading this book. So it needs to be explained that this is how I was when I was like maybe 20, 21, 22, something like that, how I thought back then. And the way I think now is actually very different. But I'll get to more of that later. So anyway, let's go back to, this here. Okay. I never wanted to be one of those people who writes books about sex. But anyone who knows me personally knows how terribly honest I am, and that no matter what they ask me, they get a short answer from me that they won't hear anywhere else. This is true. I've written about many subjects on my blog and spoken about things on my videos on my YouTube channel. But after a lot of thinking, I could no longer ignore that sex was involved in everything I had ever read from the Bible, newspapers, the internet, and even in every conversation I hear when I am around people. This is a fact that I was afraid to talk about to anyone except my mom. I can't stay silent about it anymore because I think that a lot of people are confused about sex. If you're one of them, don't feel bad because I don't even know what sex is. That, however, will not stop me from writing about it. It never stopped other Christians from writing bad books. They usually tell people that sex is evil and a sin of the flesh. I read a terrible book once that told men not to look at women at all and to bounce their eyes away when they start to. That advice is not based on the Bible, and it is terribly rude to ignore women and leave them confused about why. I felt that I needed to write this book because maybe I'm the only one who can. I wrote this book because I was confused about sex and marriage by preachers long before I had a clue what either were. I've learned that God did not design humans with bodies built for sex and then command them to ignore it. No longer will I pretend to be asexual just to please my Christian friends. I don't want other young men like me to think that they can't be straight and a Christian at the same time. Following the life of Jesus is a good goal, but Jesus never married. This is not because it's morally wrong, but in his case, he knew what his purpose in life was and that it didn't include marriage. Can you imagine that if he had a wife and kids, how upset they would be when he died on the cross? For him, marriage wasn't an option, but for regular men like me, It just may be. Are you starting to see why this book needs commentary? Because, okay, plot twist. It is now like 8 years later. That was 2013. This is now 2021, okay? It's now 8 years later, and the plot twist is I really am asexual. And I'm not a Christian anymore. So even though maybe it is possible to be straight and a Christian, at this point, I'm neither. And you might be thinking, well, first you said, first I said I'm not going to pretend to be asexual. And then I'm saying now that I am asexual. And I know it seems like a contradiction. It totally does look that way. But I'm about to explain some things. And because I'm what I'm about to explain to you in this live stream, I will probably die because people will probably come and murder me for saying this. But you see, I thought I was straight because some women are pretty, okay? And so I could look at a woman's face and think, oh, she's beautiful, she's pretty, you know? And I thought, oh no, I'm lusting after her face. And because I thought that I was lusting after some woman's face because I happened to look at her face and know that it was pretty, that meant I was lusting and I was having a sin of the flesh and I was going to hell. Like that, okay, this is just what Christianity does to the young autistic mind, okay? I thought I was lusting after girls' faces. But on the other hand, I could look at men's faces and bodies all the time, but I didn't feel like I was lusting after them because they were ugly. So it's okay to look at someone's face as long as their face is ugly, because you're not lusting after their face if it's an ugly face, you see. So it was only beautiful faces that I was lusting after. And so I thought I was straight because women had better looking faces, and therefore that meant I was lusting after their face. So I thought I was straight back then. Plus, I didn't know much about sexual orientations or gender identities. I didn't know any of the LGBT stuff back then, really. I really didn't know much. I had heard about homosexuality and gay marriage and that was a sin. But I generally assumed that most people were straight and that I must be straight because that's what God designed. So that was just my feelings at the time. But as it turns out, looking at someone's face and thinking they're pretty is not the same as being heterosexual. Now, I don't fully understand it because I am asexual, but I've since learned, based on what other people say, that people don't look at someone's face and then want to have sex with them. At least most people. Hopefully not. Let's hope not. But so anyway, I'm going to continue, but I just wanted to clarify that point. So, okay, back to screen recording here. Okay, so this book is not intended to give you any serious advice about sex. It is not a religious book intended to convert you to my beliefs. I can promise you that is not the case because my own theories about sex and faith in God changes on a daily basis and is influenced by how much caffeine is in my body. If you want to know how to do sex, look for another book. But if you want a good laugh, I think you'll enjoy this. I mention God in the Bible a lot because this book is explaining what is wrong with how many Christians view sex, dating, and marriage. Excuse me. It's based on what I have actually heard people say. The mention of God and religion is something that I have a hard time avoiding because it has become such a part of me that I can't ignore. Whether you believe in God or not, He gave you a brain and a choice. I do not think that He has some eternal punishment in store for you if you happen to lust after a girl's face or have sex with the wrong person. I used to fear that God would punish me for even thinking about sex or looking at a woman's face. But now I think God is too nice for that. It is you who must decide your future. You must take responsibility for your own choices instead of blaming God, the devil, or other people. Okay, so before I continue on to chapter 1, it's time for more commentary. Okay, so first of all, I have my Diet Pepsi with me today. And I don't usually show my Diet Pepsi here because Monique is going to kill me when she finds out I still drink soda. So that's just the way it's going to be, because it's like I said, my faith in God and my beliefs sometimes can change depending on how much caffeine is in my body. So I need to drink some good caffeine. I need to get myself really high if I'm going to continue this book, because this is hard for me. It's hard for me to read through this, and I'm like, oh, why did I write this book? I thought that back then. This is so sad. Oh man, yeah, I need my Pepsi because this is a hard book to get through. Not as hard as my unicorn book, Chandler's Honesty, but this is a very hard book for me to get through because it is so emotional. Brings back a lot of memories. So yeah. All right. Have some caffeine. It's time to continue with this book. There's like 9 chapters in this book. And I truly hope that this stream is successful and that everyone can hear me, because I have a lot to say about each part, but this can be very entertaining. Okay, time for a recording. Is it screen again? Okay. Chapter 1, Admitting the Truth. When I was much younger, I had never heard of sex. If I remember correctly, I knew about pregnancy and about babies being born. At the time, though, I didn't know what caused the process to start. I just assumed women randomly got pregnant for no reason. As the years passed, my mom tried to explain sex to me, and I read some books about it, but somehow words just don't help me understand something. It's all another language that I don't understand any more than Spanish. I learned to play video games by just pressing buttons on the NES controller before I could even read or understand most English spoken words. I suppose someone could learn sex by trial and error also, but what really has kept me confused is that growing up, listening to people in the various churches we attended, I was taught that you're not supposed to do sex until you were married. Then that leads to another unanswered question of mine. What is marriage? I became more and more confused as the years went by. Now, as an adult, I have all these thoughts that go through my head, but I never have admitted them to anyone until now. I was still afraid of what people would think of me if they knew that I thought about sex, dating, and marriage, and dared to question the common Christian teachings. Now I no longer go to any tax-exempt, government-approved church. I am not around any religious people, and it makes me feel that now is the time to tell people the truth. And the truth is, I have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, yep, admitting the truth. So, as you can see, now that was chapter 1. And so you see that there are 9 chapters, but these chapters are exceedingly short. And so hopefully it won't take too long to get through this whole book. But here's the thing. I really don't know what I'm talking about. And at that time, I was thinking, well, I learned computer programming and how to play video games and how to do everything else by trial and error. So why can't the same method be used for sex? Like, oh, well, you're not supposed to do sex until you're married. Which really begs the question. And this is in my mind back then. I thought, okay, so you're not supposed to have sex until you're married. So what happens if you get married someday and then you try to have sex with your wife or husband and you can't do it and you don't know how? And what if you just suck at it or just decide that you don't like having sex? And this has actually happened to people. I kid you not. I have been through many asexuality groups of other people who are like me and they're not interested in sex. And then some people, like, they get married or they have sex before marriage or whatever, and they're like, oh, sex is gross. I'm never going to do that again. These people exist. There are actually people who they actually have sex with someone and they're like, oh, this is gross. I ain't going to do that again. That's so annoying, you know? So this exists. People who they tried sex once and then they find out they don't like it. And I've had people ask me, because you have to understand, I'm 33 and a half years old now. This has been 8 years since I wrote this book, and I'm still a confused virgin. I've never had sex. I've only heard and read other people talking about it. Therefore, I don't know what I'm talking about. But people ask me, well, how do you know you're not going to like sex until you try it? First of all, trust me, I know. It's like asking someone, how do you know that you don't want to hug a cactus if you've never tried it? You've seen a cactus, right? If you hug a cactus, it's going to poke you, all right? So go hug a cactus or go hug a rose bush, you know, and get poked, you know. There are some things you don't have to try to know you're not going to like them. Some people do try things and then find out they don't like them. So yeah, asexual people exist, and asexuality is definitely a thing. I'll get more into that later, but I just thought it was worth mentioning because this is very funny. As somebody who, I guess now that I think about it, I would have had to have been maybe 25 or something like that. If I did the math, I could figure out how old I was back when I wrote this book. But yeah, so I was a virgin then, I'm a virgin now, and I still haven't had sex. So like I said at the beginning of this book, this is not a book about how to have sex. Rather, it is the ramblings of a confused virgin who doesn't know what sex is and is trying to make sense of the world and what people say about sex. So anyway, without boring you too much with my commentary, I'm going to proceed to read more. Oh, excuse me, I had to burp. Okay. Chapter 2, Where Did Sex Come From? I've heard and read enough to know that sex is something that two people do and that it causes women to get pregnant and babies to be born. Sadly, many people don't even say that. They say that they have sex when they really mean that they do sex. I could be wrong, but I think it's a verb and not a noun. So at least I know that it's something people do. But where did it come from? Who started it? Why does it keep going? Or is it right or wrong? Will it continue forever? Or is it a phase that humanity will grow out of? Genesis 1:26-28 and 2:18-24 are what most Christians would point to in the Bible to explain the origin of God creating humans as male and female and telling them to be fruitful and multiply. They definitely obeyed God's command to multiply, or all the humans living now wouldn't be here. It's interesting how there's this little sidebar that lets you navigate. I don't even know how to turn that off. Is that even possible? I'm just curious. What happens? Oh, what was that? Okay, that's weird. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, people definitely were fruitful and multiplying. It's because we have a lot of humans now. So that was my thought. Okay. So according to the Bible, which many Christians believe is the infallible word of God, we can learn that it was God's will for people to do sex and produce lots of babies. Why then do too many Christians today think that sex is a terrible sin beyond God's forgiveness? Some have invented a double standard and say that sex before marriage is a sin, but if you're married to someone, then it's okay to do sex with them. Notice carefully when you read Genesis that the woman was called the wife of the man, but it never mentioned God giving them a marriage license. The first marriage was illegal, according to American standards, But in the United States of America, but the United States of America didn't exist back then, and God was the only government to decide who was married. At the moment, that's the best explanation that a virgin like me can find to explain the origin of sex. I'm not writing this to tell you to do sex, but I know that you'll probably do it anyway, and I don't want you to feel guilty about it or that God is angry at you. If you happen to be one of those atheists who don't even think there is a God, I have some simple questions for you to ask yourself. Don't you want to believe in a God that tells you that sex is okay? Have you given up on God because Christians have told you that he is mean, angry, and doesn't want you to dance, hear music, or do sex? Have you considered other options besides assuming that God doesn't exist? Only you can answer these questions, but I hope you enjoy my book, whether you believe in God or not. And then we go on to chapter 3, is sex right or wrong? Okay, so, but before I continue to chapter 3, some commentary is necessary for the chapter 2 that I just read. So here's the thing. So reading this now that I am an atheist, although that's still up for debate whether I'm actually an atheist, I don't know if I'm an atheist any longer. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't believe in the Christian God anymore. And so back then I believed in the Christian God, very obviously and strongly. I believed in the Christian God, but I had in my head this idea that God was nice, maybe, and that he wasn't like the Christians in church, or at least I wanted to believe that God was nice rather than what was implied in the Bible and what Christians were teaching in church. Also, I am glad that I switched back to this window and am taking breaks because we have some comments. We have some comments right now from Hungry Billy Bruce, which happens to be a frequent commenter on my live streams for whatever reason. Okay. Yeah, he says, I met a girl who thought she was bi, never wanted kids, and said sex is like sticking a carrot up a nostril. Soon after we started dating, she changed her mind about carrots. Okay. She went on to marry a man and have 2 kids. Oops. That is the perfect commentary for this video. But yeah, sex is like sticking a carrot up a nostril. I wouldn't know for sure, but that sounds mysteriously accurate. But I wouldn't know, obviously, because, yeah, I've never done anything like sex, either from the male or female perspective. So that's the thing. Anyway, I guess I better continue to read and comment on my own book. But if I after the next chapter, I will come back and check to see if we have any more comments. Okay, so back to chapter 3. Okay, so chapter 3, is sex right or wrong? Even though we have some good evidence that sex was God's idea, there are many people who don't believe in God, and even some who are fine with God, but still think sex is a bad idea. For example, there was a group called the Shakers. They followed the teachings of Ann Lee. She didn't like sex and taught others to avoid it. As a result, the group died out because they didn't have kids. This shows an important point, though. Religion, just like everything else about the human race, is only kept alive because people produce kids and then teach them to believe and act the same as them. Imagine if what happened to the Shakers happened globally to all humans. If right now we could get everyone to agree to stop sexing, then no one would be born, and then all of humanity would die out in about 120 years. Imagine it, the end of hunger, poverty, war, etc. At least for the animals. At least for the humans. The animals would probably still go on living without the humans polluting their homes. The idea of the end of human life on Earth is such a nice thought, but it's unlikely to happen, especially after I just told people God wants them to do sex. But there is a new thing that goes on in some Christian groups. people have kissed dating goodbye, and the women are being taught that Jesus is their boyfriend or husband. The few Christian men that remain are being taught not to lust for the women. Could it be that Christians have come up with new teachings which go against not only the Bible they claim to believe, but also against their own biology and brain? Many men, like myself, have lost hope at finding a Christian wife because we don't want to try to compete with Jesus if these women think that he is their personal romantic partner. I believe with all my heart that something is wrong with modern Christianity and that any positive feelings that were ever involved in sex, dating, or marriage have somehow been lost. I know this because I have been in churches who actually teach this stuff. These are not the only reasons I was forced to leave behind traditional religion, but it's enough of a reason by itself. I've been burned badly by false religion, and I hope to help others avoid it. When I say false religion, I mean that the things people believe are false. I'm not saying that there is one right religion, but that all systems of belief have their strengths and weaknesses and contain some things that are true and others that are false. Okay, next is chapter 4. It's time to come back, comment a little bit. So, yes, I still believe with all my heart that something is wrong with modern Christianity. That has not changed at all. Something is definitely wrong with modern Christianity. And yes, a perfect comment, Hungry Billy Bruce. May we live long and die out. Yes, vehement. Yes, the voluntary human extinction movement. As you can see, even when I wrote this book in 2013, I thought, man, wouldn't it be nice if people just stopped sexing and the human race went extinct so that we can't mess with the animals anymore. And what's funny is that is one thing that was true then and is still true now. I do wish that even now the human race would cease to exist by intentional non-procreation, because I've learned too much. Anybody who is a vegan, like I am now, at that time of this book, I wasn't vegan yet, but I still saw that humans were being cruel to animals. I hadn't made all the connection yet, but I realized the rest of the animal kingdom would be better off if the human species completely died out. And so that's the thing is, I believe that then, and I believe that now, that human extinction is the best thing that could ever happen to this planet and for the animals. So you see, I didn't know it at that point. And back then, I didn't know anything about the voluntary human extinction movement, and I didn't know anything about antinatalism. I do now, because of course I'm an ethical vegan and I am against procreation now. And that is explained later in chapter 9 when I updated this book. But for now, you have to understand that even back then, I wished for the extinction of the human race so that they could no longer torture and kill animals. And that is the one thing that has really, really stuck with me even now. So anyway, I'm going to continue on to the next chapter. Okay. Are sex, marriage, and love related at all? People often have trouble defining exactly what sex, love, or marriage actually mean. People are taught that God loves them, but in this modern American life, people use the words sex and love as if they are the same thing. Somehow, I don't think they always come together. If everyone who did sex with someone loved them half as much as God loves us, I don't think there would be any breakups or divorce. Also, love can't be sex because as far as I know, God is not literally doing anything sexual with me or anyone I know. For now, I am convinced that although marriage and sex are probably would be better with love, most of the time there is no connection. After you get past the confusion about love and sex, you still need to define marriage. Does marriage start when people have sex? Does it start when people have a fancy ceremony in a church building? Does it start when people get a marriage license from the government of the country they live in? Does it start when two people make a lifelong promise to live together and help each other for the rest of their lives? Different people may have these different ideas concerning marriage. Maybe your marriage might include all of these things. But are these things elements of marriage, or is marriage something that is far more powerful than all of these combined? These are questions I ask myself as I consider whether I should ever marry someone. Okay, I'm gonna scroll. It's a bit of a fantasy to even think that somebody would want to marry a strange autistic computer and geometry geek who writes and speaks about religion and sex. But there are a lot of people in this world. Maybe there is someone that crazy. Right now, it remains a dream. Somehow, I hope that God will lead me in that direction when I am ready. Okay, before we continue on to chapter 5, bad dating advice, it's time for some more commentary. Okay, got to comment on this. So here's the thing. Where do I even begin? So back then, that was my thoughts on marriage. Now, personally, I do believe there is a concept of marriage. I still believe in a concept of marriage, but I think marriage is a promise that people make to each other. It has nothing to do with church or religion or a marriage license. I think that marriage is when two people who truly know and understand each other make a promise that they want to spend the rest of their life together. And there's nothing wrong with having a marriage license or having a ceremony or whatever, but I feel like some people have the ceremony, some people have the piece of paper, but they never really made a promise to that person. And I think part of what's wrong with marriage, my opinion is, I think a lot of people are getting married just so they can have sex. And if there were no church people, if there were no Christians pushing this no sex before marriage dogma, then maybe people would have sex, but then they wouldn't be getting legally married just for the purpose of being able to have sex. You know what I mean? Like, I think, yeah, people would have sex before marriage, but then they wouldn't be in a legal marriage with all the complicated stuff that comes with that. So I think the church has actually done a lot of harm in people's relationships because you have a lot of people married who shouldn't be, because don't get me wrong, the harms that come from having sex are going to be true whether you're married or not. So I gave up the belief years ago that it was a big deal about whether somebody had sex before or after marriage. I don't think it makes a difference. I really don't. And of course, like I've said before, and is explained in my newer books, I am a single virgin. I'm still a confused virgin, and I vowed celibacy for life, no matter what. So I believe that sex is mostly negative. I'm more sex negative, you could say, than I was back when I wrote this book. But at that time, I thought, okay, well, maybe it might be God's will for me to marry someone and have sex. But it was never something I actively pursued myself because I was just waiting on God to arrange it. Like, I didn't have to do anything. But even now, it's like, well, it's not something I want, so why bother, So I don't care about that because I've vowed celibacy for life. So I don't really have a reason to get married, but I haven't ruled out the idea. But there's not too many people that are for a celibate marriage, if you know what I'm talking about. Let's see here. We got more comments from Hungry Billy Bruce. I'm not sure I have enough information to make a solid commitment to any ideology. As the species is now, at this time, it does seem like a disease. Yep. Planned children seem the worst idea because they're intentionally created to further the existing greed and control systems, religion included. Yep. It's sad because having children accidentally as people do. They have sex and then like, oh, I'm pregnant. Like some people like that, and then some people are intentionally trying to produce children so that they can teach them their same religion or whatever else they believe. Making little clones of themselves. So planned and unplanned children both causes problems. So this is a deep topic, but you're right, Billy Bruce. You don't have to necessarily commit to any ideology. We're all learning and changing all the time, And we got another comment. Religious people are scared as shit of dying. That is very true. The fear of death is strangely common in people who believe they live after they die. What's up with that? Anyway, I better continue on. I want to keep this under 2 hours. I'm not going to keep it under an hour at the rate I'm going, but there's some really good stuff left in this book. Chapter 5 is the best, I swear. Okay, so chapter 5, bad dating advice. There is very little good advice out there for Christians who want to date and find a spouse. Why is this? I think it is because so many Christians tend to think of the Bible as some kind of instruction manual. It does not contain information on potty training your children, computer programming languages, where to buy the best chicken, and many other common things people need to know. Most of all, there is no information about how to date or marry someone. Back in the Bible days, men just saw women and raped them whenever they wanted. If there was any kind of legal marriage, it was something arranged by the father of the bride. Women had no choice in what man they married. This is completely wrong. I don't believe that this is God's will and was not something God gave his permission for. Women have a few more choices living in America and in some other countries where there are laws preventing men from abusing women in the same way. Instead of women passively just accepting whatever someone else decides, they can now decide whether to stay single or to look for a husband themselves. I think women need to be more active in deciding their own future. So here's my advice for the women. Please, people, don't listen to my advice because I don't know what I'm talking about. I said that earlier in the book. Advice for the women. I have some advice for women silly enough to look for a boyfriend or husband, but you must remember that this advice comes from me as a single man. If following my advice keeps you single the rest of your life, please don't blame me. You have been warned. First, you must know yourself and what is important to you. If you don't know what your life is about, your future husband won't be able to understand you at all. When you think you are ready for some kind of relationship, you should probably start with those you already know. If you already have good friends that happen to be men, think about everything they've said to you, whether in person, on the phone, email, Facebook, etc. Also check whatever they publicly post on Facebook or anywhere else online. If you listen to them long enough, you'll know what a mess they are. Consider if you could actually live with this person for the rest of your life. If not, stay single. If, however, you know the perfect guy that you want to be around, then talk to him and ask him if he wants to do something. Think of some activity where you two will actually do something. Going to see a movie or just eating at a restaurant doesn't really allow you to learn about the other person. Try skating, swimming, running, board games, card games, video games, sports, or going to the library, and looking at books together. If you get hungry after doing this, though, then going together to eat something would make perfect sense. Once you have a date, below are some tips to help you better know what kind of person this man is. Ask them questions. Be careful not to reveal too much about your religious or political beliefs. You need to ask them questions about things to see where they stand on an issue. Start controversial topics like abortion, gay marriage, computer operating systems, the Bible, free will versus Calvinism / determinism, movies, and Coke versus Pepsi. If you do this before they know what you believe, then they cannot lie and pretend to agree with you. That was what my ex-father did to fool my mom. I wish to spare you the experience of the painful marriage and divorce that I had to witness. If at any time a big fight starts while you're talking about things, then stop dating that person immediately. It's not about who is right or wrong, but if you or your date start getting angry and fighting over things now, it will only continue. Beat them at their own games. Find out what board games, card games, video games, or sports that a man likes. If possible, try to practice whatever game he plays and then play it with him regularly until you can win. You want to make sure that he's not too competitive or has a problem with women knowing more or playing better than him. Some people get their entire self-esteem out of how well they do at things. If he gets mad or annoyed that you can win over him, it either means he has terribly low self-esteem or he's a control freak and wants things his way all the time. Normally, you'll both just have a lot of fun and laugh no matter what happens. Okay, time for the best advice ever here. Make yourself as ugly as possible. All the traditional advice from magazines or television commercials or from the internet on how to be beautiful usually include things like makeup, hair dye, dresses, etc. You should probably already be avoiding this advice because they are just money-making scams. You want to make sure that a man likes you for reasons other than your body. Try to wear big t-shirts and sweatpants. If the weather is too hot for pants, then you should wear shorts. Okay, scrolling down. It is even better if you don't shave your legs. This way, it will take a lot longer for them to be sure if you were a man or a woman. Something else about your personality will be the first thing they will notice. Don't feel bad if you do not succeed in being ugly enough. It's very difficult for people to be ugly because in reality, there is no such thing. We are all descendants of the original humans God made out of dirt. Also, each human has their own standard of beauty. Ugly is in the eye of the beholder. Eat like you're enjoying your food. One of the biggest mistakes women make is that when eating in public, they eat very slowly and neatly. They don't want other people to know how much they eat and often don't finish their food. Eat the foods you like the best, no matter how messy they are. Eat like no one is watching. Women who are worried about eating too much or gaining weight could undernourish their children while pregnant. Also, don't worry about burping or farting because it helps a man know that you are human. If they don't understand that women have a digestive system, then they are not the man for you. Eat some good sources of protein. You'll need some muscle if you want to do anything fun on your dates. And you must be very strong and full of energy if you plan on raising kids with this guy. Educate yourself. It's important for all people to keep their minds sharp and to learn new things. It's good to read books and try new activities you've never done before. Make sure that you have dreams or goals. If you want to go to college or some special school to learn the skills you need for a career, then do it. Do not make the mistake of playing dumb, as some women are taught to do. Some men seem to have a problem with women who are smarter or can do more than them. A real man should not care about your spiritual and a real man should care about your spiritual and mental health as much as his own. If he tells you not to read books or not to go to college or not work a job, then he wants to control everything about you. Get away from him before it's too late. Also, the more activities you are involved in, the longer he has to wait before the next time he sees you. This gives him time to get his own life figured out. If he is impatient, he'll just ignore you and find some girl who has no life. Women are usually taught to pretend that they are stupid and somehow think that this attracts men. What it actually does is that it convinces men that women really are stupid. Men are easily fooled by a good actress. Advice for the men. Keep in mind all the other stuff was advice for the women, but now it's time for advice for the men. It would be unfair to give all these tips to the women and ignore the men. Most of it can be applied in the reverse direction. However, there are some very specific things I need to say to the men. You actually have a lot more power in this world than any woman does. Even though women are allowed to work jobs and vote now, most of the time they are not safe even walking somewhere by themselves because of evil men who will abuse them and see them as an easy target. Okay, gotta scroll. In a perfect world where everyone loved each other, women would be safe. As it is, women do need a man to protect them. I now see it as the job of a man to protect his wife, children, and even complete strangers who can't defend themselves. This is not a God-given job, in my opinion, because God never intended this world to turn into the mess that it has. But if you have any love in you at all, you will want to do this, if you can. What you must know about women is that they are people just like you. They look different, but they still think, talk, read, write, eat, drink, sleep, burp, and fart just as well as any man. They only tend to look cuter while doing everything. If there is a woman you want as a girlfriend or wife, you need to make sure that you like something about her other than her body. Not only because she won't always look the same as she does now, but also because if you don't on some level connect mentally and understand her brain, you will, in the future, have more and more things you discover that you disagree about. For example, one spouse believes in God and wants to follow the teachings of Jesus, and the other says there is no God and no right or wrong way to live. Imagine if these people had children. They would be so confused because their parents would fight about everything. Or imagine one spouse believes in eating healthy, organic food as natural and nutritious as possible, while the other just eats fast food all the time. Who decides the best way to feed the kids? This is exactly why both men and women must know everything about each other before they make any lifelong commitment to each other. As a man, I can tell other men that I completely understand that you like the body of most women you see. There is nothing wrong with this, but if the female body is all you want, you should probably buy a female mannequin and just stare at it all you want. If you don't love women and see them as equally important to you, then do the entire world a favor and don't date any woman. It's just cruel to pretend you care about someone and then let them discover that you see them as only an object to use. One more tip. While you are looking for the right woman to date, don't ignore women who already have kids. In a perfect world, they already would have a father. But most of the time, a woman is raising kids by herself because a man lied to her. He made promises he never intended to keep. Then, as soon as he decided he didn't love her or the children, he left the mother to struggle on her own. How do I know this? Because that's what my ex-father did. My mother raised me by herself. It was not easy growing up the way I did. And the things I had to see. I can't count how many times I asked God for a good dad who would protect my mom from the bad dad. Every time I am out in public and a child looks directly into my eyes and calls me daddy, I go home and cry because I know most likely to that child I look like a daddy. But if they had a daddy around, they would be talking to him. Where did he go? I would do anything I could to prevent a child from living that experience. If you happen to be a man reading this, you need to carefully consider whether, given the chance, would you date or marry a woman who has children? I know I would. I would gladly marry a single mother and adopt her children and love them as much as if they had been mine from the start. I don't think that a baby conceived from my sperm would be superior in any way. Obviously, the woman and her children would have to want me in their family as well. I would make sure I had permission from the children before I could make any serious decisions. Children don't often get such a choice, and I think they should. Okay, chapter 5 was a really, really long chapter. And yes, we have more comments. We have a lot more comments. I need to take a break from reading my own book after that anyway and read some of these comments here. But anyway, I just want to comment, like, all that dating advice. To sum up all that dating advice is that dating and marriage is complicated. And if you really read what I said there and you think about all the complicated things that can happen and what can go wrong, it's better to be single. And that I truly believe. I believe it is better to avoid such relationships and to stay single. That's what I believe now. Okay. The church needs humans as a resource. Mass suicide among its members is the thing it fears the most. The fear of death is its strongest tool. Religious people are scared of shit of dying. Oh, I already read that one. 10-minute time bombs. How to make a time bomb in 10 minutes or less. What? Marriage is challenging. I've been with my wife for 19 years, married for 14. She got fixed when we got together. She loves kids and figures they are already plenty around to care for as it is. I have now officially blown up your chat room. Yes, you have, Hungry Billy Bruce. Seriously, Hungry Billy Bruce is like my number one commenter on my YouTube streams. Seriously. But yeah, it's very interesting to hear from someone who's been married to their wife for 19 years. Or you've been with your wife for 19 years, married for 14. Oh, I see. Yeah, so you have a wife and kids. You have experience with marriage, and yet marriage is challenging. And it's not just me who says it, who's single, but somebody who is married that says marriage is challenging. So believe him more than me, okay? But yeah, so anyway, yeah, that's the thing about it is, like, I still think about it, like, what I said there at the end about marrying someone who already had kids is theoretically, yeah, maybe I still could, but things are complicated now because since I vowed celibacy and because I no longer wish to be identified with anything male, because I'm a female on the inside, even though I have the body of a male, except I don't have testicles anymore. It's not likely I would ever be in some kind of a marriage because, quite honestly, the idea of being seen, and this is kind of my own weird insecurity. I know this is going to sound strange, but I don't want to be married to a woman because then that would cause people to see me more as a man. Does that make sense? Like, I wouldn't want people to think of me as a husband or a father. That feels wrong to me because when I was a kid, I started seeing myself as the wife, as the mother. Like, that was what I started seeing myself when I grew up. But then I was a boy and I'm like, wait, so I have to be a husband and father? No, that's not me. That's not who I am. And even when I was a kid, I knew that. I knew that wasn't me. I knew that was not the role that I wanted to play. And so it's complicated. So, but as it stands, I vowed celibacy for life. So I'm going to be a single celibate virgin for the rest of my life. And that's my current plan. But it's so interesting looking back at the way I thought back then and the things I said in this book. It's actually quite emotional for me. So this is a big project, trying to do it all on a live stream. But I made this book entirely available for free. Anybody can go to Smashwords and they can look up Confessions of a Confused Virgin, and you can read the entire book yourself for free at any time. It's also on Amazon, but I couldn't make it free on Amazon, but you can buy a 99-cent Kindle edition, and you can buy the paperback if you want to support me in my writing. You can actually buy a paperback book of this. I just don't have one right now, so I'm reading it from a file. Anyway, I need to continue on to the next chapter. Will I ever get through this insanely long book? Well, it's a short book, but my commentary is long. So back to the book. Okay. Chapter 6, What is Lust? According to the research, I'm messing up the scrolling. According to the research I have done, the word lust is usually defined as a strong desire or craving. For some odd reason, people tend to assume that the desire or craving is always sexual whenever the word lust is used. Christians need to stop shouting this word at everyone when they have no clue what it actually means. It can mean many things. Lust for food is hunger. Lust for water is thirst. There needs to be a commonly understood word to mean the same as sexual lust. For example, the word attraction is commonly used this way. When people finally learn what the word lust means, they understand that what the Christians have been telling them. They mean don't desire a wife or don't be attracted to women. This is the message that so many Christians tell the men, and then wonder why the men are turning gay, which, by the way, they also preach against. Words are powerful when repeated long enough. This, I believe, is how organized religion damages lives. There is nothing wrong with religion, but don't let it think for you. Only you know how you really feel. When someone tells you that your thoughts or feelings are sinful, you feel bad and try to change them, but they are a part of you. There is no magic switch to turn them on or off. It's useless to tell the men not to lust. They will no matter what you say. Instead, men should be taught how to love. It's possible to love and lust at the same time. It's called multitasking. This is funny to me. Here is a question for the women. Do you want to have your boyfriend or husband tell you that he can't see you anymore? Imagine if he called you and said, I love you, but I can no longer meet with you in person because if I see you, I might desire you. And I can't do that because then I would be living in sin. We can have a long distance relationship by phone and email, but I cannot look at you because you're much too attractive. Who wrote this crap? Oh crap, I did. I wrote this. Like what? Oh, think about that. What does that make you feel loved? Maybe now you can see why a little lust can make a better marriage. What is pornography? Okay, before I continue to what is pornography, it's like, oh man, I wrote this book. This book has been available for people to buy for 8 years, and hardly anybody does, partly because it's a very bad book, but at the same time, it's just so funny. This is one of the funniest books that anybody could ever read, or it's even weirder that I wrote it, because this is like, I swear, this has got to be the only book in the world on the topic of sex, relationships, and marriage written by a single virgin. Like, who else writes this kind of thing? Nobody, I tell you. Nobody writes a book like this. And that's why this book, even though I've changed, my beliefs have changed about many things since I wrote this 8 years ago, but this book is unique. It has something to offer. It offers some incredible insights into some real challenges that can go into dating and marriage and sex and raising children. Even though I don't know what I'm talking about, you can tell I thought deeply about this topic. In fact, I even went to a marriage seminar once. Oh, I'll have to tell you sometime about the marriage seminar. But yeah, I went to a church marriage seminar, and I was the only one in there without a fiance. I'm just like, hey, I'm a single dude, and I'm going to come learn about marriage, just in case I need to know stuff in the future. So yeah, I had a lot of fun in the marriage seminar, but then I got scared when they started talking about sex, because I started realizing, wait, no, that's not for me. I ain't doing that. Okay. Anyway, back to the book. I'm almost done with this book. Will I get it in under 2 hours? I don't know. Okay, so great. So here we have what is pornography? People are unable to define words like sex, dating, marriage, and lust. There is another word that people tend to use, which still confuses me. The word pornography is a very vague word, just like the others. What do you think of as soon as you see that word? In the past, I assumed that anytime something contained a naked woman, it was to be called pornography. Therefore, since women's faces are naked, they must be a form of pornography. By that definition, it's impossible to avoid it. But some people would think that that is silly, but I actually thought that. I think that unless people can define what it is, it's very hard to fight against. Because of this confusion, I would like to tell you exactly how I define pornography. I think that pornography is when people use any form of a human body, whether male or female, and try to use it to cheat people out of their money by lying to them that they need to buy their products in order to experience a type of sex that God never created. The first type of pornography I will mention is the kind that targets women. Women in this world are told that the way to get men to love them is to change the appearance of their body. Greedy people make a lot of money off of women by selling them hair dye, makeup, fingernail polish, earrings, jewelry, overpriced clothes, which contain very little material, and weight loss products. Somehow, people think the ideal woman is skinny, weak, blonde, painted, naked, silent, and stupid. I think it's sad that so many women are falling for this lie. There are a lot of people who will lose a lot of money if women find out the truth. That is why I must tell you, women, that you don't need any of these things. If God had intended you to look that way, you already would. You can't make men love you no matter how much money you spend. Love comes from God, and men will love you only when they have learned that God loves them and that they should love all people. The second and most common form of pornography is that which targets men. Anything that a company wants to sell, such as a car, computer, video game, book, magazine, swimming pool, or anything else, all they need to do is advertise with some pictures or videos of naked women. It must be working because they keep doing it. Men are easily fooled too, but in a different way. Men are made to feel bad when religious people tell them that looking at pornography is a sin, because looking at women makes them feel good. Okay. They still do it, but try to keep it a secret. With television, the internet, and newspapers, it's easy to see all the women they want. The worst part is that the type of women they see are not even real. Men have no practice at even talking to women because they have spent so much time looking at pictures of women in magazines or websites that don't talk to them. Men need to know that women talk. They talk a lot. Also, they don't even have a clue as to what women really look like, because so often these images have been altered with all kinds of computer software. Men have such false ideas of what a woman is. Even if they have a wife, they don't know what to do with her because they haven't figured out she's a person. Men and women need to stop judging each other and realize that they are both more than bodies. And instead of fighting, they should use their differences to help each other. Both men and women have been lied to about many things. Wow. Yeah. So, okay, that was the pornography chapter. So, yeah. Okay, got a comment on this. Oh, we have a comment from Hungry Billy Bruce. Women are people. People want stuff. Logic has nothing to do with it. Yeah, I guess. None of this is logical. But yeah, I mean, that seems like a pretty good definition of pornography, because it's when people are trying to sell a product and they're trying to sexually excite people in order to sell them products that they don't really need. Because an honest business would be able to sell their products without using images of naked or sexual things. They would be able to do that and sell their product for what it is, rather than trying to sell beer or cars with naked women. And think about it. Nobody uses images of naked men to sell products to women. Like, why don't they do that? Like, what's up with that? Why? Because men are ugly. It's too bad. Money knows no gender and is without honor. Yep. All right, I'm almost done with this book. I'm gonna continue on to the next chapter. Let's see if I get done with this book. And thanks for your comments, Hungry Billy Bruce. Okay, chapter 8. Where is sex going? I know that humans will continue doing sex and producing more children. The only question is whether or not there will be any true families. Will men and women finally be treated equally? Will they get along? I hope that such things as fighting, abuse, divorce, abortion, and all this shame surrounding sex will eventually be completely gone. My main goal in writing this is to educate people so that all people can work together to resolve the problems that are going on everywhere all over the world. Here is the future I would create if I had the power. People will do sex, but they will only do it of their own will with those they love. All children will be wanted and there will be no abortion. All children will have two parents who do what is best for them. All forms of pornography will completely be shut down simply because people are no longer fooled and will never spend money on such things. All people will be treated as equally important no matter what their age, race, gender, religion, or anything else. That is the type of world I want. I hope that others will help me work toward it. If there is a subject I didn't cover that you were hoping for or things I could explain better, please email me at chandlerklebs@gmail.com. And you can still use that email address. That was my first email address. I have two Gmail addresses. There's that one, and there's also the newer one, chastitywhiterose@gmail.com. But the one that's in this book, you can still email me there, and I probably will get back to you. Your comments, suggestions, and experiences with this may help me expose the lies about sex even better. Okay, the next chapter is going to be chapter 9. I'm still confused and still a virgin. So before I go on, I'm going to do one more little commentary here. Hungry Billy Bruce left us a comment. What about sexting? The product is the person. What is sexting? Is that where you try to text on your cell phone while having sex? Like, what is that? I don't know about that. You'll have to explain that one to me, Bruce. So anyway, but it's very interesting because as you can see by chapter 8, my intention in writing this book was to bring some of these challenges to people's awareness so that people can learn to overcome, sexism and other forms of discrimination. I truly want equality of male and female. I want equality of all genders, not just the cis, but also the trans, everything, If people could quit being mean to each other over whether they're male or female or what body parts they have or not, or how pretty or ugly they are, that would be really nice. I think we can all agree on that. I think that's a very good message. But then, you see, I published this 8 years ago. But then later on, I had to make an edit. Some beliefs of mine had changed, and so I wrote chapter 9 and added it to the book. So I'm going to read the updated chapter 9 that was not in the original book, but I added it a few years ago. Okay. Chapter 9, I'm still confused and still a virgin. Originally, I wrote this book in 2013 while I was trying to figure out many things related to Christianity and sexuality. Since then, two major changes have happened. Oh, I meant changes have happened. Oh, well, a minor mistake. Well, there's a typo in my book. Big deal. It's not worth making a big deal out of. Okay. I'm no longer Christian by any stretch of the imagination. I found too many contradictions in the religion I was raised in and slowly lost the idea that there even was such a thing as a true Christian or right religion. I see religion as a scam to make money off of people. It's well known to people who have read my later books or seen my other work online that I no longer believe in the Christian God. I now identify as asexual. That is, I discovered that I have either no sexual desire or it's so low as to not affect me. I used to think I was straight because I once liked the idea of marrying a woman and having children like most normal people. However, that was done in the context that it was God's will for me to do that. I hadn't even questioned whether it was something that I wanted. I now have other priorities, since I would rather be watching My Little Pony, recording podcasts, or playing video games. I have no use for the concepts of sex or marriage. I know this may come as a shock to people who knew me in the past or have read this book. That's why I'm updating it. I want to cover a brief history of what happened to change my views. The most major change was when I started working at Hy-Vee in October of 2012. It was the biggest major social change in my life. Instead of going to church for all my social interaction, I was sacking groceries and bringing in carts. I started liking the people I was around. However, I had other emotional conflicts going on in my head. My head was filled with all kinds of messages from Christianity. I wasn't sure back then what I believed, and I wondered whether I was going to heaven or hell when I died. I was rather selfish during that time. I was trying to make sense out of the Bible and reading other books about Christianity. I wanted to make sure I believed and or did the right things to avoid going to hell. But then something else happened. I began to think about other people and their eternal destiny. So I set out to find the truth about God, Jesus, heaven, hell, and other things. I listened to a man named Joshua Tongol. He convinced me that God was nice. I believed that for a few months, but then I later saw that everything I believed was just what other people told me. I had no evidence or experience to keep me believing in a good God that was powerful enough to wipe out evil but didn't want to. The problem of evil continued to eat away at my former beliefs. I was increasingly upset about the abortion issue. I spent 2 years talking to people about abortion online and reading all kinds of arguments back and forth about why people should or should not kill their babies. As you can imagine, I became extremely upset about the aborted babies. However, it then led to another huge life change. I went vegetarian when I started seeing other animals as being equal to humans. I had been taught all my life that God gave humans permission to kill animals and that humans were more valuable for being made in the image of God, whatever that means. But none of that mattered. Other animals were suffering in factory farms. They were being tortured and killed in ways that no human would want done to themselves. So as my knowledge of the cruel things humans were doing grew, so did my pessimism. I wanted to know what was wrong with everybody. I found quite a few errors in my own thinking along the way. I've become aware of my emotional biases that led me to believe things based on what I would like to believe is true. All that's really left is my desire to be happy and to reduce the pain in the world. It's for this reason that I follow a life of nonviolence as much as I know how. I'm a vegan because I don't want to buy food that was obtained through violence to animals. Most of all, I see eating beef, chicken, turkey, or pork to be just like eating human meat. It makes me sick if I think about it too much. I see the ugly realities of this world, and I'm in a never-ending process of trying to do what I think will help reduce it. This all relates to what I think of sexuality. I now no longer think sex is ever a good idea. It's not worth the risk. The two most common problems with sexuality are sexually transmitted diseases and unwanted pregnancy. But suppose that people do intend to reproduce, and that's why they're having sex. There are problems with this too. When people have kids, they don't know whether or not they will be happy. They also don't know what those children will do during their entire lifetime. Basically, it's a gamble. Most likely, their children will suffer by the actions of others and will also cause suffering to others. Ironically, I do see that this conflicts with my other feelings about abortion. I'm against killing the unborn, but at the same time, I'd rather they not be conceived in the first place. There are already children who need to be adopted. Why create more? So those are my views right now. I'm asexual, but also anti-sexual because of the harm of reproduction and risk of diseases. So I will be a confused virgin for life. I learned one thing, though, that is very important. How I feel about this or what I write is not likely to change what other people do. The main purpose of this is to help explain some of the extreme changes that happened since I first published this book in May of 2013. It's still a very funny read, and I hope that you enjoyed it. The end. And that's the end of that book. So I'm going to close that one. I did it. I read the entire book. I read my entire book, Confessions of a Confused Virgin, in an hour and a half with commentary and responding to Hungry Billy Bruce's comments at the same time. Oh, we have more comments here. Some people send naked photos to one another. I guess that's like semi-public nudity. It seems like much of what people call pornography is simply nudity. It does seem like they're kind of meant to be the same thing, which is weird. My Little Pony. My Little Pony? Plaza ponies are what I call those coin-operated amusement rides that used to be outside of grocery stores. It sounds sort of discriminatory, but those dirty steeds were after our allowance money. Oh yeah, where you put a quarter in and you ride the horse. This person said My Little Pony because I'm well known as being a fan of My Little Pony. So yeah, but I read my whole book. I read my whole book, Confessions of a Confused Virgin. And any of you are capable of reading the entire text of that. If you go to Smashwords.com or you go to Amazon.com, if you try to search for Confessions of a Confused Virgin, you'll find it. And if you, for whatever reason, can't find it among the many results, email me at that email address. Comment on this video, and I'll send you the link to where you can read this whole book. If you like this book and you enjoyed the book and you enjoyed this video, then please consider buying paperback copies of this book off of Amazon, so that others can read and enjoy. Because I felt better after writing it, because all of my thoughts on all those topics, I was able to get it out. It was very refreshing and stress relieving. But it's very funny. It's very funny, the things that I thought back then. And even the way I am now is still quite hilarious. So there you have it. That is why this has been my Confused Virgin Comedy Cringe stream. So yeah, this has been great fun. So thank you, Hungry Billy Bruce, for being such a loyal commenter on my YouTube channel. And I hope to do more successful live streams in the future. And leave me your comments. Is there a live stream, something that you would like me to read? Else, is there another thing? Are there other books of mine that I've written that you would like me to read on a live stream? Because I've published many, many books at this point. So there are a lot of books, but I still like my own books best. And why do I like my own books best? Because I'm the copyright owner. Because I'm the author. Therefore, that gives me the right to read the entire book in a live stream or a video recording if I want to. So I'm very glad that I did this live stream, and I'm going to end this broadcast before it gets too long. But this has been very successful, and I hope you enjoyed my book. Thank you. Goodbye.